Hi, everyone, and welcome to our new series, Where Are They Now?, where we check in on former Crimson athletes who are making an impact off the court in their life after Harvard. We're joined this week by Jessica Gelman, a women's basketball alum, Harvard class of 1997, Harvard MBA 2002, and the current CEO of the Craft Analytics Group. Jessica, welcome.
Hey, so glad to be connecting with everyone.
Yeah, we're excited to talk to you. Let's start with your time at Harvard. You were on some really good Harvard teams, a couple of Ivy championships, a couple trips to the NCAA tournament. What do you remember most about your time playing basketball for Harvard?
I mean, first and foremost, my college teammates are some of my best friends in the world, and we just had so much fun playing. So I'll just start with that. It didn't hurt that, we were very good. We participated in March Madness. We're the first Harvard team to do that and set a record for most consecutive wins in the Ivy League as well, which was awesome. But the stuff that I really remember from on the court is, first of all, the confidence that we all had in each other. And I try to today recreate that feeling of fun and confidence in the areas that I oversee now. The second thing that I really remember from on the court was the support that we got from the other female athletes at Harvard. Another favorite memory is my senior year. We were the first team to go undefeated in the Ivy League. And I think it was women's soccer, softball, and lacrosse. They came to the game, and as we were about to win it, they started chanting, "We are Harvard, we swept the Ivy League. You are Dartmouth, you can sweep our floors." And so, those are like the great memories. And again, of course, when you're winning, that it always makes everything more fun and easier.
I assume that confidence starts up top, and Kathy Delaney-Smith was your head coach at the time. She's still the head coach of Harvard women's basketball. How did she influence your life both on and off the court, and how do you think she's still able to connect with new generations of student athletes?
Well, Kathy is an incredible person, a dear friend of mine, and someone I respect and admire greatly. And she is one of the best teachers I've ever had in my life, obviously a mentor too. And basketball really is a vehicle for her to educate. And the things that I learned from her are too profound and too significant to be able to just say here, but among many things is about leading by example, about resiliency from failure, and about the importance of fighting for people who don't have the same rights. And she's been a big champion of that for her entire life. And it is no surprise that many of my college teammates and people that I played with and people who have come through the program after have gone on to have significant impact in their respective fields, because I think it's a lot of what Kathy teaches us while we're playing for her. She's really an inspiring person. And how does she stay connected? I mean, she's hilarious. If you've had a chance to talk with her, to be able to continuously grow and learn as a person and to stay up to date. I mean, just recognizing she's still engaging with 18 to 22-year-olds. I mean, she might be on Snapchat now for all I know, but in the early days, I remember when she first started responding to emails, am I replying to all? Just like making it really funny. But she is a real student of life. And so she's always trying to better herself. And again, a great learning for me as well. And I think she, probably people who have similar capabilities or qualities of what is important to them, she tends to maybe recruit. But she also really brings that out in you while you're playing for her.
In terms of what then ended up leading to what you're doing now, when did you start to realize you had an interest in data and in analytics and realized that was something that you wanted to make a career in?
It was actually at Harvard. I think I had some inklings of it before, but while I was at Harvard, I studied psychology, and I studied sports psychology, which wasn't actually a thing. I actually had to go over to BU to get any writings on it. Obviously just really trying to focus on how I could improve my own game, as well as understand how people like Michael Jordan, you can see the Wings poster up above, how he could always perform well in pressure situations. But I did a project during my junior year at Harvard on a local high school team where it was obviously I ran an experiment, and I was in, I think at the time it was Minitab. No one knows what that stat tool is today. But I was looking at information. We had hypotheses. We're running a various number of correlations and regressions. And I started to become really interested in it. When I started to take psychology, I didn't realize it was going to be so quantitatively heavy. You had to take a number of stats classes. So that kind of was, this is a really cool way to think about doing any type and understanding what's happening in the world. And really started to bring that to bear during my time with the Patriots before Kager, to understanding what our fans might be interested in doing a lot of tests and controls on marketing and things like that. So that was kind of the beginning parts of that, but also just as an athlete and having been a huge lover of sports and having some amazing experiences with my family when I was young, going to games. Being on the other side of that and helping to bring those experiences to people, that sounded really like a cool way to live my life.
You mentioned you started with the Patriots and Kraft Sports Group back in the early 2000s, launched Kraft Analytics Group in 2016. I'm curious how you've seen, analytics and your role grow over that time, and also just how it's become more in the mainstream than maybe those backroom Moneyball guys back in the day to now everybody thinks about analytics.
Well, it's funny because, if you think about sports, Moneyball, I believe came out in 2003. So it was after I started working for the Kraft family. And even as I think about the types of marketing that we were doing in 2008 and 2009, we weren't able to personalize any of the communications to a customer. Facebook didn't exist. So the evolution in terms of the data that's actually available to do work on the business side, which is where we are on, has been massive. And so identified pretty early on, again, with the psychology slant, the interest in understanding the customers, and basically built our first, I didn't personally build it, but hired a company to build our first data warehouse in the mid 2000s. And then over time, after success with that, started running most of the customer-facing business lines of the Patriots, New England Revolution, and Gillette Stadium. So ticketing, the retail business, and then marketing. And then, we had a lot of challenges from a user perspective, getting data out of the systems, being able to manipulate. There was a lot of manual processes, and that's kind of where I was frustrated and did a ton of research. This concept of being a student of life and of always being curious, which is a big part of what Harvard is about, and basically put together a game plan to actually build a platform ourselves. And then, by the way, that could evolve into Kager, which obviously it did.
Yeah, and you mentioned challenges. Obviously, one challenge in the sports and entertainment world right now is going to be, as we continue to work through the COVID pandemic, eventually getting fans to come back in the door of sporting venues or concert venues. And I know that that's something that you've worked on at Kraft Analytics Group. I know you guys projected the future of live sports and live entertainment in a post-COVID world, and when folks would want to maybe be interested in coming back. What can you tell us about the future of live sports and what you guys think the future of the entertainment world may look like?
Well, absolutely. I think just to start, the future of live events and sports was we were looking and saying, okay, we work with the NFL across all the teams in the NFL, the Philadelphia 76ers, the Sacramento Kings, the Philadelphia Flyers, they're all clients of ours. So we're uniquely working across sports leagues, teams, all parts of the country. And when we first initiated this, Boston was especially hard hit by the pandemic. And so we thought that there would potentially be learnings from different geographical areas, which obviously, as you've seen the change of COVID across the United States and the world at large, it's very significant. So our intention was to try and predict if fans would have interest in attending games when the opportunity would come. And the fan demand index that we created, we pulled a lot of publicly available data, such as unemployment and COVID infection rate, looking at things like mobility and restaurant reservations by, at this case, there's 31 markets, but then also folded in specific elements of geography and created a model to try and inform and provide perspective. So that's the kind of work that we've been doing to help move the sports industry forward, which is really like what we're about. How do we redefine the sports industry through data and technology? But that said, what does it mean for the future of sports and what are we seeing today? If I'm thinking about it, the big question is how has sports changed? So first and foremost, if we look at it from a customer perspective, how has the customer changed? We have unemployment, as we all know, it's the highest it's been since 2008. And so there's going to be changes in people's disposable income. We've seen a much higher viewership of fans. Major League Baseball has had this massive shift down to younger fans, which is super interesting, and more women for that matter. So the actual approach in marketing and how you're engaging customers is likely going to change, but also who's going to come to the games that will potentially change too. The second part is the actual experience that people want to have when they go to the game. I mean, I don't know about you, but me personally, like, I don't want to give anyone my credit card. So the expectation of having a digital ticket and cashless payment at the venue, and obviously the safety and distance is super critical. And what that's going to mean positively is a lot more information that the organizations will have to provide more personalized, customized experiences. And that's good for a data player like us, who it's very exciting. So that will be very significant. I see there being a better flow of fans into games and being able to get more of what they want faster and the right products. And then the last thing is the organizations themselves. Like most of the United States, there's been significant challenges with people being furloughed or laid off, and there's just going to be less staff, at least in the short term, to support the engagement potentially with fans. And so how are sports teams going to adjust and still create those great experiences and potentially extended experiences in terms of digital? And technology obviously is going to play a huge part in that. So those are really the changes that I see.
Absolutely. And I think folks, if they want to read more about what the work that your group has done, you can find that report right on the Kraft Analytics Group website, right?
Yeah, thanks for the plug, Bill.
No problem. One final question. I want to ask you about something else that you're heavily involved in that I know has been a passion project for you, and that's the Sloan Sports Analytics Conference, which you co-founded back in 2006. And again, you want to talk about an example of the growth of analytics into the mainstream. It went from a small conference its first couple of years to now you've had speakers like President Obama, you've had NBA Commissioner Adam Silver there. What's it been like to watch that grow into what's become like the preeminent sports analytics conference globally?
Well, thank you. I'm very proud of the conference, and certainly when we first conceived of it and started having it at 5 different classrooms in the middle of winter, snow falling, and the 120 people who came to the conference, we did not envision that within 15 years we would have 3,500 people, and that Boston would become a mecca in the beginning of March for people to come and talk about sports and analytics, and certainly not the kind of luminaries like President Obama or Adam Silver or Steve Ballmer who have come and joined us at the conference. I'm really proud of it. Thinking about even like the beginning, early days when Mark Cuban came and he asked someone who was presenting a research paper a question about his research. I mean, that kind of uniqueness and again, this curiosity, we're really have created a forum for analytics to be talked about on the team side, the performance side, and on the business side. But I think what's important is that what's great about it and what I love about it is this engagement that we have with the student leads. And I mean, now we have 60 or 70 MIT Sloan students who are involved in the conference every year, and they're competitive. They keep wanting to best the year before, which makes it fun. And so we have a lot of new ideas that we're thinking about on a continuous basis. And so many of those students, even from the early days, they're now in sports. And so that's very gratifying to kind of see that evolution. And so it is, of course, we're increasing the discussion on analytics in sports, but I don't think I certainly didn't think it would become what it's become, but I also didn't necessarily recognize that we were creating this foundation for people to get their foot in the door in such a meaningful way. Yeah, I'm really proud of it. And analytics is pervasive across all industries. I think it gets the most attention in sports. So great timing, obviously, and then harnessing it and having a lot of fun with Daryl, who I co-founded the conference with, Daryl Morey, who's not only one of my closest friends, but also a pretty smart guy who's had a big impact on the NBA.
Great. Well, Jessica, it's been a pleasure talking with you, and really, really interesting stuff. Thanks so much for spending some time with us.
Thanks, Bill. I appreciate it. Thanks, everyone. Go Crimson.